Okay, good afternoon. Thanks, everybody, for coming. And my name is Jan Neokas. I'm on the Webster Museum Board. Tom Pellet is our president. He's here today. And Kathy Taddeo helped me set up. And Sherry Conrad is around here, Carol Yehodik, Bob Barton, and Phil Maher. And Eileen is always helping us. So, welcome today. You don't know. Yesterday morning I got a call from the speaker and he said he couldn't come because he had COVID. So I said, oh no. So anyway, I emailed Ginny, who's on, Ginny Nguyen is on the town board. You all know her probably. And she's from Vietnam, right? Are you? Yes. Were you born here or there? No, I'm born here. Okay, so she's from Vietnam, and I knew she might have a resource for us, and she did. And Ginny emailed me back, so we didn't have to cancel today. And so Charles Klauk, is that right?
Very good.
Is that right?
Yes.
Stepped up and said he would do it, and Charles will tell you what he did in Vietnam and everything, your history, okay?
Yes.
Because I don't know it now, but it sounds like it's interesting. And so we'll have a chance to listen to that. Please help yourself to refreshments. We got Schutz donuts. They're supposed to be like Hudman's, and cider from Mayer's and Schutz both. So enjoy yourself. And there's apple and there's coffee if you're cold. Thank you. Have they? You taste like it? Good. Okay, Charles, they're on.
Okay, I'm not sure what your other speaker was going to talk about, but I'm going to start back in '64. I attended school here. I've been in Webster since first grade. I graduated from Thomas in '64. And if you remember back to August of '64, Gulf of Tonkin incident happened. They came up with the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. But if you go back even further than that, we've been involved in Vietnam since the mid-50s, where we had advisors going in there. Eisenhower had advisors there. Kennedy continued it. He built up a little more. But then the Gulf of Tonkin in '64. In '65, I had done a year of college, but it didn't work out too well, so I started at Xerox in June of '65. And that summer, things started heating up a little more over there. And that fall is when they started moving units. There was a couple of battalions of Marines went in at Da Nang, and they started the big buildup. So ultimately, I was going to go somewhere. So a little bit of story about how I ended up in the Marines. I was involved in local politics at the time, 19-year-old. Town election, party won the election. I took my mother down to a victory party down at Glen Edith. And we're drinking, having a good time, and all of a sudden other people started coming up to me and I said, congratulations, are you enlisted in the Marine Corps? Where'd you hear that from? Well, your mother's telling us. So next morning, as bad as I felt, I went down to the federal building on Church Street, walked into this, talked to the recruiters, filled out the application, the paperwork. He went next door to the draft board. My folder was the next one to come out. So either way, I was going to be in the service. After I enlisted, I did get a draft notice. I was supposed to leave in December of '66 or '65. And I left for boot camp 4 days after my 20th birthday in '66. From here we went to Buffalo, boarded a train going down to Parris Island. In Buffalo, there's a bunch of us that came in that had enlisted. They were ready to swear us in. These were both regular and reservists. And all of a sudden the door opened and here comes a whole bunch of other guys in. That was the first group of draftees that the Marines took for Vietnam. So I get ready to get on the train. They give me this big package of paperwork. I'm in charge of getting all these guys supposedly down. So we get down to Parris Island. We got there. You've heard about the yellow footprints? Anybody that goes to Parris Island, you don't get there until about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. It's very disorienting. You get on the bus, they come running, yelling at you to get off the bus and get on the footprints from there. It's hectic. You're going through, you get a military haircut, which is all your hair. You pack up all your civilian stuff, that's sent home. You get your uniforms. And we started training. Normal Marine training is 12 weeks. Our group, we did it in 8 weeks. They wanted us overseas. So 8 weeks, Parris Island, up to Camp Geiger for ITR, which is Infantry Training Regiment. There we learned to use different weapons, which we never saw over in Vietnam. But it was stuff actually from World War II. You know, rifle grenades, flamethrowers, stuff like that. I came home on leave, went back to Camp Lejeune. I flew out to Camp Pendleton in California. Did my MOS training. I was in communications. I was a message center person, which means we operated teletype and that type of communications between different levels of command.
Morse code?
We didn't do Morse code. It was all teletype.
That's what my dad did during World War II.
As soon as I finished my MOS training, I joined a unit in Pendleton, and we went down to San Diego, boarded an old APA, the USS Bear, and headed to Okinawa. We stopped at Pearl Harbor for a couple days. That was my first experience in Hawaii. We had a great time. I had a Navy waif pick me up as I was walking out toward the gate, and she showed me a good time downtown.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, we're gonna end right there. All we had was drinks. She was. But then once we left there, and we had some fun on board the ship. You know, it was my first time aboard a big ship like that. And we're laying out on the deck, or the hatch, and the Navy's practicing their anti-aircraft skills. So they got these drones flying over, they're not hitting anything. So we started joking with them. We say, you know, let us get our rifles, you know, we can shoot those things down. Well, that was good until the next time they wanted to do it, and then we were restricted to quarters. They didn't want us up there criticizing them. So we got to Okinawa. We went down the nets into a landing craft because they didn't have a dock or a pier for us to pull up to, and we took all our gear in there. I spent from August of '66 until March, April of '67 in Okinawa in various camps. And at about February of '67, I decided that I was tired of getting paid in the morning and broke at night. And if you were in the military, you know how that works. So I extended my overseas tour 6 months with the caveat that I would be assigned to a unit in Vietnam. So the battalion that I joined about the same time that I decided to extend overseas was stationed at Camp Carroll, which is up in along Route 9 up in the northern part of South Vietnam. They had a company that was heavily engaged in combat with an NVA unit, and they radioed back to the base in the command unit. The colonel took a group out with a command unit to help relieve them, and they were ambushed. They lost a good share of the command group, including the colonel was killed, the sergeant major, and shortly after that they boarded the ship and they came up to Okinawa to refurbish, get replacements, get their equipment done. And I joined that group. That was 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines. We did a little training there. We did a practice landing in Okinawa, one of the beaches. And then aboard the 3 ships, it was the Princeton, Monticello, and the Ogden. We sailed down to Vietnam operating as a battalion landing team, which was any place we were needed. They would kick us off the ship, and then when we got done with that, we go back aboard ship. So we were on and off ship quite a bit. The first operation that happened when I was with 2-3 was the Hill Battles. If you've heard of the Hill Battles, that was in April of '67 up around Quezon. Our battalion was actually involved in a different operation, and when all hell broke loose at Quezon, they shifted them up there. The hardest part of that operation was I wasn't inland at the time. I was on the Princeton, which was an LPH or landing platform helicopter, so the casualties from that battle were brought back aboard the Princeton. I had where I was, our workspace, I could see up on the deck. The hardest part for me was watching these young men come back in the body bags. I think that was harder for me than if I had been in country participating. Once that battle was over, we backloaded aboard the ship, and we were going to the Philippines to refurbish and get reinforcements. That night, sun's behind us. We wake up in the morning, the sun's still behind us. In the middle of the night, we turned around and we went right back to Vietnam. My first boots on the ground at that time was right up outside the DMZ. As I mentioned to Jenny, from where we were stationed, I could see the bridge across the Ben Hai River, which is along the 17th parallel, which was the dividing line between North and South Vietnam. While we were up there trying to dig in, the ground was like this concrete. We were digging foxholes, and we got 3 artillery rounds that came in. They counter-fired that, so that stopped. We finished digging in, and then I was told to go out on the perimeter. So I was on the perimeter digging a hole and all set. That evening, as our one infantry company was coming up, or line company, they were coming in to take over part of the perimeter. We started taking incoming, and we took 107 rounds of mortar and artillery fire. I was on the perimeter. We could hear the rounds coming in 3 at a time, the artillery.
How do you count them?
It's 3 at a time.
I mean, how do you count 100?
Somebody counted them. I just read
Sure.
the report that the battalion did. It's unclassified.
Yeah.
I just read it today. 3 at a time. I was on the perimeter. I heard I would get the 3 in. As soon as the 3rd one hit, I would pop up, have my M16, and checking the area in front of me. Nothing there. Duck back down. Here comes the next 3. And this happened. This barrage lasted for about 25 minutes. About 10 yards from me, there was a young Marine that took a direct hit in his hole. And I think that we had 4 KIA from that, and a whole slew of wounded. The one part about that which kind of interesting is I'm sitting in the perimeter waiting for my C rations, and nobody's coming. So I told the kid I was in the hole with, or on duty or guard with, and said I gotta go get my food. I walk over, and the lieutenant looks at me and he says, "Sergeant said you were dead." I said, "What do you mean?" So apparently he saw the young man that was near where I was, and he went and told the lieutenant. Well, I said, "No, and I'm very hungry right now, so I'd like my C rations." All right. We were there the next day. We packed up, and we just did a sweep down toward Cam Low. Here's the DMZ. We were right up here, and then we did a sweep down toward here. This is, from this red line up to here is the I Corps. I Corps that's where most of your Marine units were. If there was any Marine units that weren't there, they were embassy or assigned to MACV headquarters. One of the big bases there was Da Nang Air Base. We spent a lot of time flying in and out of there with some of the duties that I had. Back aboard ship, we did this until December. We offloaded when we got down to Da Nang. Our first base in country was just south of Da Nang. We took over the 1st Marines headquarters. We were there for, and it was right after we got off the ship, or just before that, I decided that the Marine Corps, or I believe it applied to all the services, came along and said, well, if you extend another 6 months to stay here, we'll give you a special leave. Sounds good to me. So I extended another 6 months. And in December of '67, they flew me home. So I was home for Christmas until January, about the 3rd week in January. Flew back over to Okinawa, which was where the transit barracks were. Any Marines that went over there, they flew over, they went to Okinawa, they flew into Kadena. Up to Camp Hansen, they had a transit barracks there, they were assigned to a flight, you went back down to Kadena, flew down to Da Nang, and then they would disperse you. Anybody know what happened in January, early February of '68?
Right.
Before Tet.
Oh, before.
Or same time.
Hmm.
North Koreans had captured the Pueblo.
Okay.
So when I get to Okinawa, they're not sure whether we're going to Korea or we're going to go back down to Nam.
Oh, wow.
Well, I did get sent back down to Nam, rejoined my unit. We were in Da Nang for a little bit. I landed in the middle of Tet. At that time, the 26 Marines started coming over. They'd been built up and activated. They took over our barracks and everything, so we had to pitch tents for a little while. And then shortly after that, we moved up to Fubai, which is near Wei. And we spent most of our time there operating out of there. As I mentioned, April time frame of '68, they evacuated Quezon. This is a picture of my bunker that I had up. We were just outside of Quezon. And if you're familiar with anything that happened in Quezon, they were under siege. The only way in and out of Quezon was by air, and that was at the risk of being shot down. So a lot of C-130s that went in there to deliver supplies, they would come in. If they touched down at all, it was barely down enough to open the rear, kick stuff out the back, and by the time they got to the other end of the runway, they were airborne again. So they decided to abandon the base, and so we went up there. Our battalion was up there. They recovered some remains from some of the crashes that happened in that area, plus we were security while they were pulling out of the base. I spent the rest of the time, Fubai. Toward the end of that time, we moved up to Quang Tri because they wanted the whole division together. Then lo and behold, because I was in the message center, I got messages from that came down into the battalion, and there's a message that came through and says, well, let's see, you got this MOS, and if you got this, when you return to the States, we're going to release you from active duty. So I knew as soon as I came home I was going to be released. So I left Vietnam in September of '68, came home, and was released in October '68, about 3 months early. One issue that happened up in Quezon area. You're all familiar with the M16s. You've heard about them. I mean, you're still hearing about them. Well, back then, we had an issue with them. They were new. They started with M14s. They were heavy. If anybody's carried an M14, they were heavy. They were 7.62 NATO, round NATO issue. They came up with these M16s, more firepower, 223 ammunition, but they started jamming. It was alleged that a number of the casualties that our battalion suffered and other battalions suffered at Quezon were because of the failure of the M16. So when we We had a young lieutenant who spoke to, it was either Life or Look magazine, and stated his opinion of what happened there, and that didn't go well with the man. Our battalion was taken down to Da Nang. We were offloaded, and they went through and they took statements from every Marine that carried that rifle that was involved in the battles up at Quezon. They did make improvements. We went back aboard ship. They had people from the factory come over. We were standing on the elevators on the Princeton, and we just firing into the water until the thing jammed. Then they would take it from us and see what was wrong with it. They did finally solve the issue. But one of the other issues was cleaning rods. They had one cleaning rod for every 3 Marines. Yeah, it wasn't the best situation. So this is a picture that was taken while we were doing that. That's when I was a little bit younger.
How old were you when you went in?
I went in when I was 20. That picture there, 67, I was 21 then. The operation that we did from the DMZ and sweeping out of there was called Operation Hickory. It's one of our overnight locations. That was a great place to dig in because it was a big bomb crater. So we could dig in around the rim of it. So you'll see the rubber mattresses there, or the air mattresses, that's what we slept on. We used the helmets for pillows. We had ponchos if it was raining. But at this time of the year, it was hot, it was dry. One of the other things we had to battle over there was mosquitoes. So you always had your bug juice. You always had your, yeah, they were this big. You had your bug juice, you made sure you used that. Because there's a lot of, not only Marines, but service people that served in Vietnam that came down with malaria.
Oh, gee.
Really?
And, so that was important that they, you use that bug juice when you're, especially when you're in the field. When we were on base, they come through with these big blowers and coat the area with the insecticide or whatever.
DDT.
Whatever it was.
The other good stuff.
All right, some of the times I had aboard ship, this was on aboard the Tripoli. That's one of my favorite pictures from the time I spent aboard ship. One incident we had, I would go out into the field with shackle sheets or code sheets, and they can only carry 3 days at a time. So every 3 days I'd have to go out company to company, pick up the old sheets, give them the new ones. So we come back one day, I had a friend of mine, came back aboard ship, we go down in the troop quarters, put the rifles in the racks between the bunks, and somebody jumped on the rack and all of a sudden the round went off. Went right up through the ceiling by the head. The head was right above us. So
That's appropriate.
he got in trouble.
Really?
But because I was able to vouch that he cleared the weapon when we came back aboard ship, and that was the end of that. So, any questions? All right, after I came home, what did I do? I went back to work at Xerox. I worked at Xerox beforehand, and I spent almost 38 years at Xerox. Retired from there, and then I started driving school bus. I've been doing that since.
Do you get together with your comrades?
There's one gentleman that I stayed in touch with. Our battalion has a reunion every year. They skipped a couple years because of COVID. Last year it was out in Reno, which we didn't make. Only 2 reasons, because we weren't supposed to be here to begin with. We were supposed to be on an Icelandic cruise, which we had to cancel. And other than that, my wife wasn't able to travel, which is the reason we canceled the cruise also. But we've been to several reunions, both battalion and division. We were in the 3rd Marine Division, so we've been to their reunions also.
Were you aware of any of the conflict that was going on at home?
Oh yeah,
Were
when
you-
when I came home on leave and special leave in December '66 or '67, I'm sorry, and when we came home when I was actually released from active duty, we would go to LA Airport to catch a plane. And what happened there, the first time we went in, there was 3 of us that came back, excuse me, on special leave. We got to the airport, and you know, of course we want to get a drink, so we walk up and, you know, and there's a bunch of women. They got the bar, nobody would move out of the way. Nobody wanted to make room, so we had to push our way up to get our drinks. But one of the best experiences I had traveling in uniform was in Chicago. Chicago, I would get there probably a half hour after a flight left for Rochester, so I spent a long time in Chicago waiting for the next flight. The first time I flew through there, I went to the dining room, and they had the nice dining room. This was before they expanded and all this wings and terminals and stuff they got. Sat down, I ordered a nice steak dinner, a couple drinks, and enjoying myself. And I got done, and I called the waitress over. It's all taken care of. Some gentleman at the bar paid for it.
Oh.
Then I go down into the waiting area. I'm sitting there trying to get some sleep. And people keep coming up to you. You know, well, my son's serving there, you know, and very friendly. I mean, I had great experience flying through Chicago. LA, no. So, you know, it was there. I was aware of it. Even when I came home, you know, I was joined the VFW shortly after I came home, and we heard stories from, you know, World War II guys didn't really want to accept us back, and there was other stuff that happened, but we fought through it. Excuse me, and we made it. But you know, that was the way that things were back then.
I
You
know. Thank you for your service.
Yes.
You know, I think you know, you've heard PTSD. Some people very severe. I'm not sure. I might have had a mild form of it, because when I first came home, I was not the best person to get along with. But my saving grace was joining the VFW, and I mentioned this to somebody here. I met my wife there. So 53 years ago, we met at the VFW, and it was funny because she was sitting there with her parents, and I was on the other side of the bar, and her mother pointed over, she said, "You're going to marry him." So if anybody knows down in Bobby Westfall, that's my in-laws. So, you know, we've been together, well, we're 52nd anniversary, but we met 53 years ago, so. And the rest is history.
Good, you didn't hook up with Hanoi and Chain.
No, no. That's not a very popular, you know, I am in the Vietnam Veterans of America. That's why, the uniform. This is what I actually wore in Vietnam, except forget all the patches.
Sure.
The only thing I would ever do was the ring. Take all the patches, ribbons, and everything off. I tried to put the one on that I actually wore in Vietnam, and I got to about here. We had C rations. How did we open them?
Oh, what do you call them, a
P-38s.
P-38, yeah.
Very simple. 2 pieces on a hinge. I can still use that. This is the one I actually carried in Vietnam.
Wow.
Wow.
And I still use it. You know, if we can't find a can opener somewhere we're stuck, it works great.
Have you gone back?
I would love to go back. I'll tell you, even the time I was there, I spent a lot of time flying in choppers, because they would send me down to Da Nang to try and beg, borrow, and steal supplies that we needed, radio parts and stuff. for the battalion. It's a beautiful country. I mean, except for where, except for the bombing and the other damage that was done. It was green, you know, you could fly over the rice paddies. I mean, I thought it was a beautiful country.
Well, could I say something?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Please, Jenny.
You're allowed.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ginny Nguyen, and the reason what I'm wearing today, I'm wearing my culture. It's called Vietnamese áo dài. That means Vietnamese long dress. So to honor Charles, that stepped up in the last minute to help speak about the Vietnam War and everything, and on behalf of our, you know, the Vietnamese community and everything, I just want sincerely to say that we are deeply and so much appreciative of everything you and all the veterans have done for us. I wouldn't have been here, and I would never have this opportunity with my family without all the sacrifice that you and everybody else have done for us. So on behalf, you know, I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of most of Vietnamese people, because there's a lot of propaganda, you know, against the American, which is not true. And I'm so happy, I'm so proud that I have a little part that to resolve that and to let people see the light. And that's why I say Vietnam was a beautiful country, because to me it was a republic, democracy and everything. Now it's a communist. So this is my home.
You still have family up there?
No. And this is my country. And that's why my son wanted to enlist, you know, and to fight for her too and support her just the way she did, helping us, gave us a second chance in life. And this is what we're going to do. I give it back to this beautiful country.
Thank you.
And give back to everything that you and, you know, all the veterans have done for our community, our country as well. So in the bottom, you know, in the bottom of my heart and everything that I am, I'm deeply appreciative. And by the way, this wife is beautiful. She looks like a model.
You know, when I was in high school, I did a lot of reading. I had all kinds of books, and one of the favorite subjects I had was World War II. Not stories about it, but actual history books that were written about World War II. And I always felt that I was kind of deprived because I didn't get that opportunity, but of course I was too young. So it was always my desire to serve at some time or other. So when I was in the service, stuck in Okinawa, one of the main reasons, other than the fact I was tired of getting broke every night, right after payday, was I figured the only reason I was in the service was because of Vietnam. So I might as well be there. So that's why I chose to go. So I was there by choice. A lot of soldiers, veterans that fought there, they had no choice. But it was my choice, the same thing, because I picked up rank fairly fast. In 2 years I had made E5. I had taken over my communications group, the message center. The staff rotated back home. They didn't want to bring another staff over, so as an E5 I had the unit. And I had the ability, if I wanted to go out in the field with the command group and be out in an operation, I could put myself out there. I'd let my other people handle the stuff back in the rear. And when I decided it was time to go back and get some good food, I would rotate back to the rear, and I would send another one or two of my people forward. Any questions? Any comments?
Oh, also too.
But everybody here that has served, and I know you've had, I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I know that I had one hell of a EM club in the Air Force. I never got a chance to go there.
I didn't either.
But it's funny, you know, we'd send guys on R&R, and I did go to Australia on R&R, and the guys would come back with
Ooh,
a
that's
couple
nice.
bottles.
I had
And,
did that too.
And you know, we would sit down, you know, a bunch of us in a circle, and you just pass that bottle around. And you made sure you took a good, because it may not get back to you again.
Oh, could I say something?
But these were the good times, you know.
Well, yeah, you can have the floor.
So,
You're cuter than him.
No, because of the Charlies and all the veterans and everything, my dad was the first Vietnamese platoon at that, regime that was trained by the American for Green Beret specialist.
Oh, really?
So he's a
Wow.
lieutenant colonel, and because of him, that's why we came here to.
Wow.
Just wanna, add that in there. And that battle that you there, right there,
Right.
Ken, my father was there. So, and he told us about it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah. But if you talk to a lot of the veterans, they're gonna tell you a lot about the good times. You're not gonna hear much about the bad times. That's why a lot of the stories haven't come out yet. One thing that did happen this year, Adam Bell decided that there should be a Veterans Day parade. And this actually idea came from Joe Morelli, told him he should have one. So we marched last Saturday. They held it the day after Veterans Day, so it didn't interfere with all the free meals everybody was going with. But they had 100 and some units there.
Oh, good.
Wow.
Not a lot of spectators, but the parade worked out well. I thought the program at the memorial was great. So it's something they want to do on an annual basis.
Where was the parade?
The parade started at Highland and Goodman, went up Highland to South, and then into the Vietnam Memorial area.
Okay.
It was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, I didn't hear
No,
about it.
and if you've all been to the Vietnam Memorial, you've walked the walk, you've seen the ballards, and there are names there that are from Webster. Would you like to recognize them now?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I forgot.
Five names, Shirley.
Phil Meyer.
Five names
I think
from
it's
Webster.
Yes.
Yeah, Phil Meyer, who's back here, he does our website, and he did recognize all of these veterans that died in the Vietnam War that were from Webster. And so I wanted to read their names to you and take a moment of silence. And so I'll do it now, thank you. Leonard Coles, Rex Daniels, Donald Hollander, Peter Callback, and David Semler. Thank you.
And this is an asterisk, Pete Callback. At the time, I was working in the police department. And we would get requests from the services for a background check. And I filled out Pete's form that they had sent. They want to know, any records or anything, so I kind of had a connection with Pete. And, Rex Daniels' father was a member of the Post, so that was also a close one. We did lose a couple others, but not in Nam itself, and it was in that time era.
Thank you.
Yeah, Callback was killed while I was over there.
Yes,
I read his name in the newspaper.
yes.
Missing in action, and then the next.
I just want to take 1 minute to, so thankful that Charlie's here. First of all, coming stepping up for us at the last minute. But I did want to make note also of this gentleman over here, Ron Gentle, who I had the, I was going to say pleasure, but I think I may rethink that. We graduated from high school together, and it took me 3 years, but I finally got his Air Force uniform out of him. And we have it on display now. And a few years back, when we had an event here, Rosemary Merrill's dad was still alive at that point, if you guys remember him. And we just talked casually. Things went on, and the more we talked, the more he started talking about his service. And I got to thinking, as you've mentioned, people always talk about the good times and not so much about the bad. So we have this little group of guys from 1961 who have breakfast once a month. I do it when I can get my proverbial out of bed and get down there, which doesn't happen too often anymore. But I said to Ron one day, I said, I hear all these stories about World War II and in Korea and so on and so forth. Can you tell me about your experiences? So he said, I'll tell you what, come on over to my house and I'll show you some slides that I've got from my time in Vietnam. Now, Ron, you've heard Charlie talking about Da Nang Air Force Base. That's where Ron was stationed. He was a rigger, correct title?
Yeah, I guess in the
Yeah.
States.
Yeah,
Over there, I was the ramp tramp.
ramp tramp, okay.
I was the coordinator between MAC and PACAF for loading and unloading the aircraft.
He loaded a lot of aircraft with equipment that dropped out by parachute and so on. So I go over to his house and I walk in. He's got a carousel projector out there. You remember the carousel trays? They hold 100 slides. He had 6 boxes.
Oh.
So about 3 hours later, we got through the whole thing. But the thing that's always impressed me, and I'm sure Ron could tell you a little bit more about this, but his barracks had sandbag barrier, I don't know, what, 4 feet high or so around it. And then later on, concrete barrier. During the Tet Offensive, and I guess at some other times too, there were some big holes in the side of his barracks where they had fired handheld
That was
rockets.
our office building.
Oh, okay. All right, well, yeah. So, things weren't always easy no matter where you were over there, and I give you all the credit in the world for being there. I really do.
No, they had the 122s they were fighting in there. They hit the ammo dump there in Da Nang,
Yeah.
there in Tet.
That was on the Marine side.
Yeah,
Yeah. Ron
that was a
over-
busy airport. It was constantly either landing or taking off from there.
That was one of the busiest in the world.
Had 2 runways, parallel runways, and
Actually, it was 4.
was there 4? Yeah, well,
We're talking
That
about
fours
the-
would take off together.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. It was funny, when we were there, and I was taking the C-130, like from Da Nang up to Phu Bai or something, they would put the ramp down, there was 180 Marines. You go in, I don't know how many we had to cross, and you just get in there, and then they would close the ramp and say, okay, sit down. You got rifles, packs, and everything else poking you, but that was it. That's how we did. There was no seats or anything. We sat on the floor.
Yeah. It's,
Have you been to Washington? To the memorial in Washington?
I have been. I was just down there on honor flight. I went down, my grandson went down as my guardian. I was there the 1st of October on honor flight. Have you been yet, Ron?
I'm not on honor flight, but I've been to Memorial several times.
Have you signed up for honor flight?
No, I haven't.
You need to do it.
Yeah.
If you were, you too.
I wasn't here.
Oh, you weren't in, you didn't serve, okay.
No, I
You
never.
need to fill out the application.
There you go. Now, I'm gonna keep beating you up till you do that too.
I went down as a guardian back in Mission 38, which was about 8 years ago, with a Korean veteran. He was a good friend of mine. And it was quite an experience. I mean, I had tears because it meant a lot to me, because it's a welcome that I never got. When I came home, both times I landed at Rochester Airport about 4 o'clock in the morning, and the only one to welcome me home was my mother.
Wow.
So when I went down on honor flight with my grandson, it meant quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
So if you haven't been to one of the welcome home ceremonies,
Yes. Did you have to stay in a wheelchair the whole time?
I'll tell you about the wheelchairs. No, I did not, because
Oh.
what you do is when we're in the airport to go through security, if you're sitting in a wheelchair, they open the gate and they push you through. Your guardian takes the backpacks and stuff, he's the one that goes through security. When we got to the Tomb of the Unknowns, they want every veteran in a wheelchair, because then they can push them right up front. If you're not in a wheelchair, then you gotta stand behind everybody, or you gotta go up in the stands. So we got there, we were first in line. My grandson I could almost reach up reach out and shake hands with the guard that was walking.
Wow.
It was cold, but it's an experience. You need to sign. Yeah, there's about 1,000 or so on the waiting list now, but get your application in.
How many folks here have been to the Vietnam Memorial in DC? Have seen it? I was absolutely amazed the first time that we went to see it was my wife and my two
Yes.
children. We were down in DC for a vacation. And I specifically wanted to go over there because I was looking for Pete's name
Right.
and Lenny Cole's.
Yes.
And it was just amazing to me that before you go down in, you're in the hustle bustle of Washington DC. But the farther down in that you went, the more quiet that went, and the voices all went to whispers, to absolutely no talk at all. It was just absolutely amazing to me to experience that.
Yes. We went down as a group back when they dedicated the nurses memorial there.
Oh, yeah.
From the Vietnam Vets group, we took a couple buses down. Al Gore spoke. We sat out on the mall. We had box lunches. They had big screens so we could see it because the only ones that they were letting up close was the nurses,
Yeah.
veterans that were there for the memorial. But, the other one that they've changed, if you've been down there, you've gone through the memorials, the Korean Memorial. They've added a section where they got all the names. And they're not listed chronologically, they're listed by service and then by rank. So if you find the Army, and then you got your PFCs or privates, however it is, and then that's how it goes by rank. But there's 30-some thousand names there. But that wasn't there the last time I was down there. It was just dedicated this year. And the South Korean government put up a big chunk of the change for that.
Oh.
So that, there's something new, and then the War on Terror Memorial is supposed to be starting construction. I think they've raised their funds. I think they're getting ready. And it's supposed to be on the mall somewhere.
Washington is, I think one of my favorite places in the world is Gettysburg, and I think Washington DC is the only one that's got more statues and memorials than Gettysburg does.
There's another one, just a story that we got from Honor Flight that, we were told, the Air Force Memorial. Have you been there?
No,
It's got the three.
Oh, wow.
oh, yeah.
It's in line, the Sheridan Hotel. It may not be a Sheridan now. That's the memorial, and then the Pentagon. The plane that hit the Pentagon came over the hotel, took an antenna off the hotel. The Air Force Memorial was under construction at the time, so it wasn't up that high. If it had been, the plane would have hit the memorial before it got to the Pentagon. So if you get down there, you see the air, and that's one of the stops that we made on the honor flight. But if you haven't been to a welcome home ceremony, and I've been to every one since Mission 38,
You better go.
it is an experience.
It's really nice. I've been there twice.
Yeah, I got a picture of you and I at yes. But it's really, and even then, it's not me returning home, but I still get very emotional with these guys coming home, because I know what they're feeling. And right now, most of the World War II guys, they had one World War II guy, a veteran, on the last flight, but the majority on the flights now are Vietnam. On my flight, we had 6 that weren't, and 54 that were Vietnam. So that's numbers are up. A lot of the World War II guys, like I was talking with someone, there's very few left. I think in our VFW post we might have 2. And when I first came home, it was majority. I mean, they had probably 300 some World War II and just a few Korean and a few Vietnam. And the way they treated the Vietnam, a lot of them didn't hang around. So
nice that you tell the stories. I know World War II, like with my dad, you were pulling teeth to get anything out of them. They didn't want to talk about it.
And you'll find a lot of people won't.
Um,
I mean, there's stuff I won't talk about.
because you were Air Force, my dad was Army Air Force back then, and he ended up running communications out of a base in England. But one story was that I knew they were in gliders, and they went over to Belgium with all these gliders. And they were going to 3 strips. Well, turned out the Germans took over 2 of the strips, and they're all trying to get into the one, and like every other one, the guy would come in and land, and another guy'd be running away from the other, and he'd get it with the wing. So that was, but they got held down for 10 days, and I couldn't believe I got it out of my dad, but he brought it out. At any rate, at the end of the war, when they came back, they flew back from an island, I don't remember which island it was all from Africa. They flew back to Brazil to fuel up, and then up to Philadelphia. And it was the military DC-3. And
Yep.
when they went over to Brazil, they lost an engine. They didn't care. They fueled up in Brazil and flew
They were
with the
ready
one
to go.
engine.
You know, the one thing that I can't fathom is if you look at D-Day, June 6, 44, then the bravery and the actions of the sailors, or not the sailors, but the soldiers,
Yeah.
the ones that jumped out of the planes or landed in the gliders in enemy territory. I mean, they decided they were scattered, they had to find each other. Those that came ashore in the landing craft under fierce fire.
Yeah. Oh.
You know, this is, you know, we didn't have this type of an experience. You know, we had the experiences, but nothing like those World War II. And or if you look at the Pacific Island campaigns, when you know, they went ashore in Tarawa or Iwo Jima. My wife's uncle was in Iwo Jima. He was a tanker with the Marine Corps. My father-in-law served on the North Carolina in the South Pacific. They got hit with a torpedo.
We have, back in the alcove back over here, we have a uniform from Ralph Yeager.
I saw that.
Yeah, and he went into Omaha at D-Day +1. And we talked about, we had all this stuff here last year and so on, and we talked about that. And his main duty was cleaning up the beach after the day before.
Wow.
And I can't even imagine what that must have been like.
No, when you
And
look
then,
at
as a Marine too, we have, I'm sure you saw the dress blue
yes,
coat over here. Jim Rice.
Yep.
He was in.
oh, I know Jim. Yeah, we used to do reunions for him.
Yeah. He was in, oh, yeah, yeah. I've seen that uniform before.
That's right, you have.
Is that the one I tried to tell you to wear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the one I tried to tell you to wear.
Charlie was in his dress blues last summer when we had the big to-do down at the Webster Union Cemetery for the 2 Revolutionary War soldiers. He was part of that,
And
that
also
whole thing.
the memorial.
And oh yeah, but, and then your son was there with us
Yes,
that day
yes,
too,
yes.
down at the
We
cemetery.
got pictures of us together.
Yeah.
We got several pictures of us. We got pictures from the parade together.
Your wife didn't mind?
What's that?
Your wife didn't mind that you had pictures of her?
No. No. She's in
I
some,
love her.
she's
She
in
knows
some
her.
of them. She's in some of them.
No, that was easy.
Yeah, that was quite a thing. And Jenny's son, now what rank is he?
He's in Navy.
Navy Lieutenant, yeah. I was absolutely amazed because he works like recruiting now,
Yeah,
correct?
he's
But his first thing that he did was in submarines.
She's a submarine officer.
And I can't imagine, I still can't imagine getting in a tin can and going under the water for any length of time. I'm sorry, but a lot more things I'd rather do than that.
We had a couple of members of the VFW that were in World War II in the submarines. You know, we heard some stories from them too.
Oh, I'll bet.
You know, they drink the alcohol from the torpedoes, and then the torpedo didn't go as far as it was supposed to.
They didn't tell me that.
Well, it's a different one.
Yeah,
But this was
they don't
back-
shoot those kind of
I
torpedoes
mean, if
anymore.
you've been to Pearl Harbor, they got a submarine there you can tour from World War II. I mean,
In Buffalo.
I don't know how these guys.
Buffalo's got
There's one
one.
in
Yeah,
Buffalo.
But I haven't been to the Buffalo one, but we did it in Pearl Harbor. I don't know how these guys, travel on those. Of course, they had to come up in for air at times, not like in the nuclear ones now, so.
Yeah, he did it, Richard, he deployed like 3 times, and each time like at 6 months,
Yeah,
9 months. It's kind of tough on, young family and everything. So that's why he come back here to be recruited, because there's a position
we know
open
the
up.
big difference, when we were in.
But he loved it. If it was up to his choice, he would still be there in Italy.
You know, the only communication we had with home was letters. You wrote a letter home, then you wait a while and you might get one back. So mail call was always a big thing. You know, today, they're on the phone or
Yeah, no.
there's more ways, FaceTime and everything else. But we didn't have that opportunity. And when my brother was cleaning up, he found a radiogram that I had sent home to my parents for their anniversary. I mean, I could.
Oh, nice.
It was sent through.
Wow.
It was sent through amateur radio, and then when it got here, somebody would type it up, and then it was. But, I think the only time I talked to my parents when I was overseas was when I was in R&R in Australia.
I
What
just
was it
wanted to
like
make,
for them?
note too, with the Brookins being with us again this year, we had the distinct honor, several years ago now, I've forgotten exactly how many. His dad was the American Santa Claus at the end of World War II. If you've ever seen that video, or the American Saint Nicholas, I guess I should say.
No, I guess I haven't seen that.
Yeah, that, you should, it's been a pretty popular video. If you get an opportunity sometime, watch it, because it's quite a stirring story
You
too.
wanna say something?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Yes.
Yeah, on that subject, if you go to the website worldwar2foundation.org, and they're dedicated to interviewing as many
Right.
veterans as they can, and getting their stories, and they've done almost 30 hour-long documentaries.
Oh, my goodness.
And they're still working on them, and one of them they did on my dad, and if you go on the website, you can find that documentary, and I think this time of year you can watch it for free.
Okay.
World War II, what?
World War II, WWIIfoundation.org.
Oh, okay.
Great website.
Yeah, one of the trips that we took for one of our battalion reunions was down to San Antonio. And we did that in April, 50th anniversary of the Hill Fights, and one of our stops coming home was New Orleans. And we went to the World War II Museum there. That was something I made a point of doing.
Yeah,
And that's quite a place to visit.
that's a great place.
They've just opened, just recently, there's a Vietnam War Museum that's opened down near Fort Worth. That's where this map came from, actually. It was sent to me because I donated to the construction there.
That's a great man.
If you're going down 95, just south of, right near Quantico, and if you look off to the east, depending if you're going down, it's on your left. If you're coming up, it's on the right. You'll see this big silver thing that sticks up in the air. That's the Marine Corps Museum.
Oh,
That's a lot of history in there. We usually stop there every year. Everything's free except for, I think, the movie. And they got it's a great place to visit also.
wow. Great. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.